From 1964 to 1965, under a number of false names and in secret, studio head, adventure capitalist, and themed entertainment pioneer Walt Disney purchased a little over 27,000 acres of swampland in the center of the state of Florida to build a theme park. After about 6 years of development, Walt Disney World Resort opened in Orlando, Florida. But that wasn't the only thing Disney built with the erection of the new resort. Before it was known as Orlando, it was Fort Gatlin, named after American Army physician John S. Gatlin, who was killed in 1835 in Dade's Massacre, a battle between U.S. soldiers and the local Seminole people. How it came to receive its modern name is somewhat contested. One theory genuinely posits that a local judge proposed the name after the character from the Shakespeare play, As You Like It.
O poor Orlando, thou art overthrown, or Charles or something weaker masters thee.
But for nearly as long as Orlando has been called Orlando, it's been a fairly popular area for tourism and vacationers. The state of Florida experienced a real estate boom in the 1920s, and up until the Depression, Orlando remained a fairly constant hub for resort-goers. The area didn't experience significant development for a number of decades following this, however, housing only a population of approximately 52,000 by the year 1950. The city was home to the Orlando Army Air Base and Pine Castle Army Airfield, and then subsequently to a branch of the aerospace and defense company, Lockheed Martin. The area was populated by a significant number of Army and then later Navy personnel, but its economic and developmental prospects shifted up slightly in 1962, when what would one day become Orlando International Airport was built from a portion of the Pine Castle Airfield, by then renamed to the McCoy Airfield Base. 3 years later, in 1965, Walt Disney announced the construction of a second theme park in the area. Walt had considered Tampa and Miami as other options to break ground, but ultimately pivoted to Orlando for its position further inland, which diluted the risk of hurricane damage and thus interference with park operations. Anaheim, the city that hosted the original Disneyland park in California, had itself already been transformed by its presence. Founded in 1857, Anaheim had functioned mainly as an agricultural community for nearly 100 years, until Disneyland opened in 1955. Suddenly home to a powerful magnet for tourism from all over the country, Anaheim not only grew, but became an entirely new city. An abundance of hotels sprang up first, before being followed by new residential districts. Citrus orchards were transformed into hospitality centers, shopping, dining, and even more hotels appearing in their shadow. The city's population in 1950 was a mere 14,000. By 1960, it was over 100,000, surging by a massive 600%. And a very similar story was about to happen in Florida. After Disney World's opening in 1971, Orlando's breadth multiplied not only in population and economic activity, but today, it now houses more large-scale entertainment attractions and theme parks than any other place in the world. But how exactly did this outpouring of themed entertainment and tourism build up an area that stretches across more than 3 separate counties? And did it build this metropolis for the better? In the early 1960s, Orlando looked like this. It was a largely agrarian area. Orange groves dominated the landscape, and Florida Technological University, which would one day become the University of Central Florida, and one of the biggest schools in the country, had only just been established. Orlando was, for the most part, quiet. Disney's announcement of development was the moment the axis shifted. It should be noted that Disney property is technically not in Orlando, but in Kissimmee.
Our Florida land is located partly in Orange County and Osceola County, between the cities of Orlando and Kissimmee.
It's today considered a part of the Greater Orlando metropolitan area, which stretches through Orlando, Kissimmee, and Sanford, and it's been growing ever since the park's opening, though there were a few pre-existing factors that propelled that growth. One element Walt capitalized on when selecting Orlando for the seat of his next theme park was its location along 2 new high-traffic travel routes. Under President Dwight Eisenhower, the interstate highway system began to be implemented across the United States. This was a nationwide network designed to connect major American cities to one another, in turn boosting economic growth and development. It just so happened that Orlando sat at the junction of 2 of these roadways, the Florida Turnpike and Interstate 4. One way or another, people were going to pass through the city. And once Disney World was open, people did much more than just that. On opening day, October 1st, 1971, 10,000 guests visited the park. It celebrated 10 million visitors after its first full year of operation. A decade later, the park expanded with a second gate, Epcot. After another 7 years, there was a third, and as Disney grew, Orlando grew. From 1970 to 1980, Orlando's population increased by nearly 30%, from 99,000 to just over 128,000 people. By the next decade, there were nearly 165,000. When Walt Disney World initially opened, it was comprised of one theme park and 2 hotels, the Magic Kingdom and the Contemporary and Polynesian resorts. About 6,000 employees or cast members made up the workforce to run operations. By the year 2023, it had grown to 82,000. 1 out of 8 jobs in Central Florida are supported by Disney. The total number, both direct and indirect, that are attributed to the company is 263,000. Disney had quickly become an economic catalyst not only for Orlando, but the entire state. Florida was already a magnet for its warm weather and low taxes, but Walt had effectively placed an X marks the spot on the map for investors and businesses, and quiet agricultural Orlando effectively ceased to exist. There was a reason Walt bought the land that would become Disney World under aliases and fake business names. Real estate values in the area skyrocketed after the public became aware of Disney's involvement. And after the opening of the park, suddenly all of the swampland and plains, and the orange groves, were worth something. The landscape of Central Florida practically changed overnight.
In 10 years, the only orange tree in Orange County will be in a museum.
Urban development happened on a grand scale, and it happened rapidly. The Orlando metropolitan area is defined, perhaps more so than any other place in the country, by tourism. Half of its businesses, restaurants, attractions don't exist with locals in mind. And today, a lot of those locals are here for the very same reason the tourists are, the parks. So with all of this rapid development, what does the surrounding land around Walt Disney World actually look like? What grew up to orbit the main attraction in the hopes of drawing in stragglers with their gravity? First, let's talk about an intentional Disney installation. The community of Celebration is just about 5 miles from Disney property. It's often called a town, but it's technically a CDP, a census-designated place, so an unincorporated community. That means it lacks its own municipal government. Instead, a 5-member board of supervisors establish the district's policies, in accordance with state law. The Celebration Community Development District handles infrastructure and public services, and the Celebration Residential Owners Association oversees residential regulation. Disney being the governing entity is actually little more than urban myth. The largest landowners within the community are rumored to have ties to the company, though. Even though Disney was the body behind Celebration's initial development, they have since been a further removed entity from its continued operation, and today most, if not all, property in the district is privately owned. Celebration's architecture and layout were actually meticulously conceived by several high-profile urban design and architectural experts and companies, and it reflects a cozy, quiet, idealistic 20th century-style neighborhood populated by parks, schools, and local businesses. Graphic designer Michael Beirut didn't just design the street and retail signage, but the home sales brochures, fountains, trail markers, and even the manhole covers. As picturesque as the community is, it has also been called too perfect. Every single thing here is the way it is by design. The uncanny perfection has led to some people calling the pseudo-town creepy, like a sort of Stepford imitation. It's in some sense the last gasp of a remnant of Walt's desire to build the perfect community.
We think the need is for starting from scratch on virgin land and building a special kind of new community.
The community didn't turn out to be entirely perfect, though. As it turned out, many of the home's structural integrity was severely compromised. One story goes that the Californian builders didn't account for Florida's high humidity and heavy rain, and in 2016, the Wall Street Journal reported that the town center condo owners, quote, are battling leaky roofs, balconies that have become separated from the sides of the buildings, and mold spreading in their walls. Within a handful of years, several structures were foreclosed on. Today, the community mostly retains its utopian image, though at the end of the day, it's hard to beat the Stepford allegations. Right next to Celebration is Old Town, which is a little less picturesque. Old Town is sort of like the county fair mixed with Vegas. There are lots of themed events, restaurants, shops. It's like a strip mall for tourists. Old Town is fairly small, but right behind it is a fun spot, which offers more traditional carnival-esque attractions, and these locations can be found in several places around the Orlando area. On the way to Old Town, you have Earlo Bronson Memorial Highway, along which you can find treasures such as Machine Gun America, Citrus World, the Museum of Military History, This Wizard, Another Wizard, this one's even scarier. And technically it's on 192, but I wanted you guys to know there's two of them. Strip malls dominate the rest of the metro area, along with dining and a handful of other tourist attractions besides the parks. Dezerland sits just off of International Drive, and is Florida's largest indoor attraction, though it's technically like 10 attractions inside one building. There's the Auto Museum, which exhibits thousands of not only vintage vehicles, but iconic pop cultural staples. Go-kart racing, axe throwing, laser tag, mini golf. There is a lot of mini golf in Orlando. Just south of Dezerland is Icon Park, a collection of restaurants, more rides, and most notably a Ripley's Believe It or Not. Interconnecting Icon Park to all of its clones across the area are the worst highways known to the human imagination. Off the highways are endless roads of chain restaurants, gift shops, more mini golf courses, and value resorts. Residential communities are tucked away just behind. Many sit along the highway. Orlando is the definition of intense urban sprawl. There is no pedestrian infrastructure. You must have a vehicle or access to public transportation to move around. Getting around at all is difficult. The population has and continues to grow rapidly, which keeps housing costs high. It destroys natural habitat. In the 60s, most of Orlando's rainwater could be recycled productively.
For 9/10 of the water in Orange County comes from the ground beneath the groves, which absorbs the rainwater, and rainwater cannot filter through concrete.
What is Disney World doing to the agriculture of Orange County?
Well, mainly it's increasing the real estate values here. And as a result, a good many people are selling out their groves for urban development. I've been hollering about protecting green belts here in Central Florida because green belts produce water as well as oxygen supplies. And if we start replacing it with houses, somewhere down the road we're going to have problems like California.
Disney did incredible things for Orlando. It made Central Florida a much more economically viable area, but that growth didn't come without costs. There is so much more to talk about. Ultimately, this video barely scratches the surface. This is just a peek into a metropolitan area that exists as a result of growth without real plans for sustainability. A phenomenon that is not unique to this part of the States, but is one of the few that has seen this growth catalyzed and shaped around a theme park resort. When you drive through Orlando, because you certainly won't be walking, you drive through name brand advertisements, and they never end. But I say none of this to disparage the city. I lived in Greater Orlando for years. I know what it's like to be stuck in I-4 traffic, to pass through the dystopic scene of terrifying gift shop facades and timeshares one after the other, to interact with the Disney adults.
Remember, I'm lost. And they met the others.
In a 2007 National Geographic article, Orlando Beyond Disney, the author made this commentary on the state of modern Orlando. Its growth is built on consumption, not production. A society founded not on natural resources, but upon the dissipation of capital accumulated elsewhere. A place of infinite possibilities, somehow held together by a shared recognition of highway signs, brand names, TV shows, and personalities. Former Orange County Commissioner Linda Chapin said, "We've allowed Florida to be turned into a strip mall. This is our great tragedy." Today, Orlando is a nationally recognized hub for aerospace, digital media, aviation, software design, and agricultural technology. It's the center of the U.S. military simulation and training programs. It's home to some of the most famous entertainment in the world, as well as their orbiters. And it's what happens when fairy tales meet reality.
It's my first time in a